Good morning, everyone. Britt Simon here. Thought I'd jump on live and take some questions from you. I'm just getting myself set up here if we need to show you any information. DV charts. Let's have a look at DV charts. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to take all your questions, give you some answers. Nothing sort of particularly stunning to present to you, although actually right now I'm getting a weird thing with Zarissius' site. Let me just let me fix this a second. DV charts. Here we go. This should work better. Oh, well, seems like his data is out. Okay, so let's talk about some of the questions that you might have. I'm sure many of you are going to ask me for my predictions for next month. I don't really have predictions on a month-to-month basis. I give an indication about where I think the math can take us by the end of the year. Now, I want to address that a little bit. The math is the math. The math doesn't change. So although I have an opinion about where they should get to by the end of the year, that makes certain assumptions. It assumes that, for example, they're going to issue all of the visas, which they don't have to do. So they can cut off earlier than my predictions, right? It also assumes my predictions were done at a time when travel bans, etc., didn't exist. And they still don't exist as of today, just to be clear. But it is likely, I think, that the government will implement a travel ban, which will have a dramatic effect on the final predictions, right? So predictions made at very long distance, sort of predictions made in January about something that's going to happen in September are naturally unreliable, okay? And you have to sort of bear that in mind. But it's math at the end of the day. The math is the math. The numbers are the numbers, and that's based on, that's how I've sort of obtained my predictions. So on a month-to-month basis, I've said in the past, I think EU, to answer your question about EU, I think EU is going to get into the upper 20s pretty reliably. That's my expectation. That gives them 4 months to move 13,000 cases, 13.1 thousand cases from where they are now. And so they've got to do that in 4 months. Well, that's my prediction. It doesn't mean that I run KCC or the visa office that determines these numbers, but that would be my assumption. I don't quite know how it's going to happen, whether it's going to be 4,000 per month for 3 months and then 1.1 for the last or whatever. I don't know. Well, it could be something else. So we have to wait and see what happens. But I would be disappointed if EU doesn't move, let's say, to 19 or 20,000 in this coming visa bulletin, just because it makes it harder to get to the end point. And where it gets hard, that's where we tend to see chaos in the last month. Chaos, by the way, could advantage some people, but it will be unfair. So that's why I prefer not to have that last minute chaos, to be honest. But anyway, that's where we're up to. Felix says, I've seen there are no updates regarding the proposed travel ban in place. Yes, so the report was due by the 20th, wasn't it, right? And so the report should have been given to Trump by now. And along with the report, people preparing a report would make recommendations. The recommendations is the travel ban that we've seen in terms of what was leaked, the red, orange, yellow, and the countries that could be on that list. But it's entirely possible that that ban gets changed, that the country list gets changed, etc. So until there is an actual ban, there is no ban, right? Until it happens, it hasn't happened, right? And so right now there is no ban. We can only speculate about what we think can happen. Okay. So Nakuba says, great job. And Beck says he's a fan of mine from Uzbekistan. That's good. My case number is part of a case range being ready for May interview, being scheduled at Abidjan, but didn't get to NL, and my case status didn't change to ready. Again, there is transit showing. Okay. When you see cases in transit, I think there's some confusion. At least one YouTuber who's got no freaking idea sort of mis-explains this to people. So let me explain what this is. When cases go into an in-transit status, the individual whose case we're referring to that is in transit, they will have received their 2NL. They know that they've been scheduled, right? That person doesn't look at in-transit case numbers and says, oh, there might be something coming to me. There is this one YouTuber, this, what was his name? I can't remember his channel name, but he's an idiot. And he offers a guidance program and all this sort of thing. You know, he doesn't understand anything, but he pretends to guide people. But what he says is that while you see in-transit cases, you can expect more 2NLs to be sent. That's completely incorrect. That isn't true. In-transit cases are cases 2NLs that have already been sent. It doesn't indicate anything about what will happen. It indicates something about something that has happened. The difference between an in-transit case and a ready case is that when we're extracting the data, when Zarissius is extracting the data or Philip extracts the data, we don't know where that case is going. But the person whose case it is, they have got that 2NL already, okay? And so it doesn't indicate a damn thing about what's about to happen. It indicates something about something that has happened. So if you haven't received your 2NL, but seeing in transit cases doesn't mean that you're about to get it. You could know about your case, whether your case is in transit or not, and therefore you will have received your 2NL. Okay. So I don't know if that answers your question, I say, but I wanted to make that explanation. Hey, can some people in my family be disqualified and others not? Yes. That can happen. You can have a situation where a principal applicant is either married to someone or even has an adult child under the age of 21, and one of those derivatives, the spouse or the adult child, can be disqualified for something that they've done, right? And so the principal applicant, in theory, could continue the case, but somebody, a derivative under them, spouse or child, could be disqualified. In that case, it is up to the principal applicant whether they continue the process and separate the family, or whether they say, okay, fine, well, none of us will bother going then. Now, on the other hand, if the person being disqualified is the principal applicant, then everybody in the family is disqualified, right? Because the whole case cannot proceed without the principal applicant. So yes, it is possible to do that. Delphin, Nairobi update. So for Nairobi, Accra, and Addis, we've not seen 2NLs scheduled for, where are we now? March, April, May. We've not seen 2NLs coming out for May interviews. We don't know whether they're going to schedule or not, right? There's some jackoff, some idiot in one of the lottery channels that was alleging he had some information regarding some people that were let go in January, and therefore they're not able to do any immigrant visa interviews. But that's bullshit. And the guy was just a bullshitter and an idiot, because the official data shows us that Nairobi, for example, are producing more non-immigrant visas now than they have ever done before. Their capacity is higher over the last year than it has ever been before, going back for as long as we've got the data. And we know that from officially published data that Zarissius makes available. So there's no reason to be confused about this. You just have to use some common sense. Unfortunately, common sense isn't that common, it would seem. And some people just like to talk out their asses and scare people for no reason, which is just stupid. But let me show you what I mean here. Okay, let me present my screen. I think I can do that like that. Yeah. So so this is the data that we have. This is official data that Nairobi data have put out, and All embassies do this. And this is available under the issuances by post link from Zarissius's website, right? Now, as you can see, going back a few years, back to March 2017, where he's presenting the data, you can see that very rarely did they issue immigrant visas more than 500 in a month. Rarely, right? Maybe 2 or 3 times a year, right? They did it one time. They go in 2017, June 2017. In August and September of 2018, they had a busy time period because they were trying to finish off the DV year. That green color shows the number of diversity visas. You can see that in the screen there. But the typical number of visas that Nairobi were processing was something like 300 to 400 immigrant visas on a typical month. And occasionally, typically in September, because of the sunset date for diversity, they would go over 500 visas. Look how many they're doing now over the last year. It is typically approaching 1,000 every month, right? They're doing 1,000 visas, and obviously extremely high in when we get. So it was very high in March of 24. They did an awful lot of employment visas for some reason, employment immigrant visas, right? That was a big batch done then, and they seem to have been working on a batch. That grey color there is employment visas. So for some reason, they did a large number of immigrant employment visas from March to about June of 24, right? And that pushed their numbers high for that year. So they must have said, yep, we've got all that processing capacity for a period of time. We'll process those, right? Now, as they've moved on in September of last year, from about June to September of last year, they did a lot of diversity work. That's very normal. They tend to do a lot of work on diversity, so that in September they issued 795 visas in 1 month, right? And that's obviously a lot of visas, right? And their overall capacity they scheduled, or they issued rather. I mean, imagine this as issuances, not just scheduled. So they're scheduling more people than this because some people get denied, etc. But they did well over 1,200 in September in total immigrant visas, right? And in December they did looks like about 12 to 1,250. Okay, of those 537 issuances in December were diversity. In January, the majority of the work that they did was immediate relatives, 678, and only 81 visas were issued in diversity, probably from December interviews, because there were no interviews in January that I'm aware of for diversity cases in Nairobi. But these were probably cases that had got into 221G in December, right? So they were issued in January. Now, if you look at the recent trend, the amount of IR cases, which is that sort of yellow color there, I'm hoping you can see that color, has gone up dramatically. So they did 118 in July. Then they did 100, and just look at the yellow color, right? 176 in August. In September, they did 184 at the same time as doing 795 diversity, right? So clearly there was a preference given towards diversity in those few months. And then all of a sudden they did almost no diversity work, nothing in October, nothing in November. They did 537 in December and 81 in January. But if you look at the IR cases, they've now gone to about 500 immediate relative cases, 530, 502, 678. So their capacity has not dropped, which was the point this idiot was making, that their capacity has been affected. Their capacity has not been affected. And I'm specifically talking about Nairobi now for those people wondering about Nairobi. Their capacity is still high. It's still, almost double what it used to be. Okay, so the capacity is high, but they're working on immediate relative cases. IR cases, immediate relative cases, are visas for immediate relatives of US citizens, we're talking spouses and children abroad of US citizens. Okay, so for example, a US citizen adopting a baby would be an IR case. That's a very high priority. It's the highest priority that any of the embassies have. And there are times when embassies deal with the backlog of that work in the same way that they obviously dealt with the backlog of employment visas for a few months. So what I'm personally expecting for Nairobi is that they are putting this effort into IR cases right now. I don't know how much more work they've got to do, but I think they're probably saying to themselves, or they say to themselves, okay, we're going to spend 3 or 4 months of doing a priority towards IR. We'll get those numbers down, right? And then hopefully they will say, okay, diversity has sunset dates at the end of September. We'll come back and we'll start doing some diversity cases in May or June or July, and maybe we'll have a few months of good performance for Nairobi. Okay, but that's just an assumption. I have no information to base that on. That's just an assumption. You have to take that, as just a guess, and it could be wrong. They may do nothing more in diversity. I acknowledge that, but that's not my expectation. Okay, but my expectation is that they continue to have this capacity. There is nothing that has caused the capacity to drop. Okay, I hope that answers your question about Nairobi and all the questions about Nairobi. Hello, Simon. Please tell me about the expected visa bulletin for Nepal next month. I don't know. I haven't looked at Nepal in particular. But you know where it's going, right? The cutoff for Nepal in terms of selectees is about 11,500. It's probably a few too many. But if your case number is below 10,000, you just have to be patient at this point, because I expect us to get to that level, and I don't expect Nepal to be blocked by any travel ban. Any updates about the travel ban? I talked about it. Mum, I can't come help you cook. Brick Simon is life. Thank you. Your mum will cope without you. If I want DV26, can I file DS260 without a passport? Yes, you can. On the DS260, there is a place where you can select a passport ID and insert that ID. You can also select a choice, I think it's other national ID. You can do that, and then you can obtain your DS260. You can obtain your passport later. You need a passport to go to the interview, right? You have to, unless you've got some big reason why you can't obtain a passport, like refugee status or whatever. You typically need to provide the passport for the interview, but you don't need it to fill in and submit the DS260. Okay. Do you think the visa bulletin can reach 65,000? It always helps if you put the freaking region, but I'm sure you're probably talking about Africa. But please just be specific. Always make the region clear. Do I think it can reach 65,000? Yeah, it's possible. I don't. Mathematically, I don't think it's justified to go to 65,000. But what we might see, particularly if there is last-minute chaos, is we might see them pushing Africa again, because what they're doing at the moment is trying to get Africa to consume all of its visas. They've given Africa an advantage this last month by only increasing Africa's visa bulletin number and keeping other visa bulletin numbers more or less static. Okay, so and that helps Africa, and they're really trying to help Africa, right? So it wouldn't be a total surprise to see them push the numbers to quite high levels. It wouldn't be a total surprise. It's just that mathematically there is risk of them cutting off before 65,000, right? So it's possible they can reach 65K, but it's just there's some risk. Okay, and if a travel ban is implemented, by the way, that affects countries in Africa, then that will almost certainly trigger a higher case number being met. Okay, but so it's bad news for people that are banned, but it's good news for others. That's basically what happens there. Please, what's the current status of Freetown Embassy for case number 32K? Please go and have a look. There is really good tools available. Let me just do something here. So Zarissius makes this data available for us every week, and really by this time, you guys should be understanding. I've created videos on how to do this. You should be able to look at your own embassy and not need my help to figure out what any particular embassy is doing. But he added something just recently that has made things extremely easy, right? So if you go to Zarissius' site, you can download the latest case numbers in each 1K for all consulates from here, right? From here, there's a little link, right? So you go and get that link and you save that document. You save this. Anyone can this device can see files. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Okay, so then you open up this file. And what you're going to see in there is a really, really simple way of seeing what each embassy is doing, right? Now, if your focus is Africa and you're interested in Freetown, this is the number of cases that have been scheduled per 1,000 case numbers in each embassy. This is ABD embassy, ABJ, and so on, Accra there, and so on, right? And so that's a good way to look at it. But for the three big regions, he's separated that out and he's made this like really simple, like just incredibly simple. So you can then see, okay, well, the case numbers are current, apart from except countries, case numbers are current up to 35,000. So which embassies have scheduled cases all the way up to 35,000? You can literally set that line, right? And you can scan across and say, okay, all of those embassies have scheduled cases right up to 35,000, meaning they have no backlog at all, right? In Africa, they have no backlog. And you can see all of the embassy names at the top here. And you can, if you're interested in one particular embassy, you can have a look at, a particular embassy, and you can have a look at that, right? Now, Freetown clearly isn't doing anything, right? So your status for Freetown is in trouble, right? Because they've just had that one case, which I suspect was probably a transfer in. Okay, so you should go and have a look at that. Okay, now for any other embassy, let's look at Johannesburg, for example, right? You can see that they have regular number of cases in every 1,000. Just it's not always going to be the same number of cases for every embassy. This is sort of a random selection of people who have been scheduled at a particular embassy. So they had one case in the first 1,000 or in the 16,000 range, etc. They had 5 cases in the next 1,000, right? And and so on, right? Different numbers. And you can see that they've been pretty consistent right up into 34,000. So Johannesburg, you would know, is very slightly backlogged, but not badly at all. Let's look back at Freetown, because they did start off the year with some cases. There's Freetown, right? And they are backlogged back to 8,000. Now, you can also look at this spreadsheet and say, well, on average, I've got those numbers there. I've got an average of 11.6 cases. I've highlighted in Freetown those numbers, and Excel has given me an average. I mean, this couldn't be easier, right? This could not be easier for you, unless you got a direct contact that or you can speak to me. Honestly, this couldn't be easier. So you got no reason to ask me the questions when all these tools are available. So on average, there's 11.6 cases per 1,000, right? So to get from the 8,000 range to 32,000, which is your question, right? You would need all of these filled up at about 11 cases per 1,000, right? You would need all of those blocks. Well, how many is that? Well, actually, sorry, I should have scrolled right up to the top. The average is a little bit lower than 11.6. No, call it 10, right? So 10 cases per 1,000 from 8,000 up to 32, right? 22, 30. So they would need to schedule 300 interviews. Is that right? No, it doesn't sound right. 250. 250 interviews in order to get to your case number range, right? And what are they scheduling on average? Not 250. You can have a look at that on Zarissius' site. Zarissius' site also. You can see what Freetown has taken, right? Again, you've got all the tools. You got no reason to be confused. So they took 23 cases on March 14th. On February, they took 16 cases. Now, they clearly are not going to get caught up to your number for some months to come. And in fact, unless they get a significant increase in their capacity above this sort of 20-ish figure that they've been taking on a monthly basis, they're never going to get to your month, right? So you need to think about that. Do you want to hang out and wait for Freetown to get to your case number, or do you think you should try and move? And if you're going to try and move, don't ask me which embassies are working well. Download this spreadsheet, right? And have a look at the data. Which are would I move to Cairo? Yeah, possibly, because Cairo are taking lots of cases, right? Every month. Would I go to Casablanca? Well, Casablanca have a backlog after 21,000. The Morocco cutoff number is higher than that, so I know that's a bit of a backlog, right? And we know that also that they have cancelled some interviews and rescheduled them. Kigali's doing well, right? They're right up to date, so maybe you can go to Kigali. Another one here. What's that? Monrovia, right? MRV, Monrovia. Okay, you've got all the data. This is in your hands. If you're listening to my channel, you have an advantage. If you're listening to other idiots, I'm sorry, you're probably confused. But if you're listening to my channel and you're using the tools that have been made available to you, very kindly by Zarissius, who doesn't earn a damn thing from anything he's doing here. He's just doing that from the goodness of his heart, right? And so you have all the tools to know exactly what all the embassies are doing and make a logical choice. So figure out where you can get to. Can you get to any of these countries that are up to date and don't have a backlog? Then yeah, you should probably consider moving, because I don't think in Freetown you're going to get an interview. That's basically your answer. Okay. Okay. Let's have a look here. Do you still have faith in Nairobi's embassy? I've just talked about that. Do you expect? What do you expect June prediction from Nepal? I was asked about that. I don't know. I had not included my spouse's and children's passport on their DS-260 until recently. Is it possible to unlock DS after 2NL? My case number is approximately 9K. Kindly advise. Once you've received your 2NL, KCC can no longer unlock your DS-260. You're supposed to make changes if changes are needed prior to receiving your 2NL. Having said that, the fact that the passport number is not in the DS-260 is not a big problem. You can just take those passports to the interview and it'll be fine. Okay, so you could ask the embassy to unlock once the 2NL has been sent, but generally speaking, they typically don't. Sometimes they don't even communicate with you very well. So that's why I recommend you get all the changes made before you get the 2NL. But in your particular case, Prakash, you don't need to worry about it, because you'll just present the passports at the interview. Okay. Obviously, Mike, we already talked about that. Hi, Simon. Is there any update about the travel ban? No. I don't think it got postponed, by the way. I had explained before that the report was due about the 20th. And whilst they could implement the ban early, it didn't mean that the ban had to be implemented on the 20th. So they're not late, and they didn't postpone it or anything else like that. It's up to them. It's a matter of when they can get Trump's attention away from the golf course and away from screwing up other types of immigrants and driving Teslas around the White House lawn, etc. When they can get his attention, and they'll show him the report, and they'll draw some big pictures that he can understand, then he can do his little Sharpie thing, right? Up to that point, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. He may choose not to put the ban in place at all. He may put the ban in place as will have been recommended. Okay. Bearing in mind that the powerful people in Trump's administration is not really Trump. Trump's just a figurehead. He's a buffoon. He's a ridiculous clown figure. But what has happened is he's got a bunch of people that surround him that are doing things that he has talked about. Right. And so they're trying to make all this evil shit happen because Trump has promised all this evil shit to his MAGA moron friends. And so all these, all these clowns that are around him for their own reasons are trying to get stuff done and push it in front of Trump. But they're all trying to do that at the moment. You've got that idiot that says he sold 1,000 gold cards. He hasn't. It's a complete lie. Lutnick is his name. He's a complete liar. He's not done that. That's bullshit. There's no law that is put in place. That gold card thing that Trump spoke about is just Trump plucking it out of his ass. And so Lutnick then says he's sold 1,000 gold cards in a day. Complete lie, absolute utter lie, obvious lie. But if you believe these idiots when they talk, honestly, you're stupid. But then you've got the racist in chief, Stephen, what's his name? And he's trying to get some bans to happen because he likes banning Muslims because he's a racist. That's basically all. And they promised that they would do that. They may well implement the ban. We'll have to wait and see. Derek, my case shows a status of AP after 1 week of approval. What does it mean? The status that reads administrative processing, we know to be part of the visa printing process. So when you go to interview, you generally, if you're put on 221G, which we always used to call administrative processing, 221G is a refusal that can be overcome, and some people wait in 221G a couple of weeks and other people wait for several months, right? But I don't think that's what you're talking about. You're seeing the words in SEAC, administrative processing. If you're seeing that, generally speaking, within about a week to 10 days or so, you will see that turn to issued, because that is simply part of the visa printing process. Okay, so be happy if you see that. We've found that 99.9% of the time, I think somebody calculated, that administrative processing word then becomes issued within about a week to 10 days, roughly, usually a couple of days. Okay. Thank you so much. Just arrived here in Oldie, Virginia. Oh, cool. Don't know about Oldie, but Virginia's kind of nice, just a little bit cold in the winter. Dear Brett, one letter mistake on my father's name. I get to an L, has a problem. No, just because your father's name has got a mistake, it's not going to stop your 2NL arriving. Why do you think these crazy things? Without TV, hi. Got my visa approved on the 10th of March. Awesome. Glad to hear it. You've been a regular watcher of my TV channel, even though you're a TV channel, I guess, Without TV. Anyway, I'm glad you got your visa approved. Let us know how it goes. Please also go to my blog, BritSimonSays.com. Actually, just Google the words Brit Simon interview experience. And if you Google that, you come to a page on my website, which is incredibly valuable information for everybody. Because people for the last 10 years have been adding their stories of how their interview went. So you can read about how simple or complicated the interviews were, usually simple, usually 2 or 3 questions, right? You can read about what sort of documents people presented or were asked for. You can read about those for your embassy. It's an amazing resource. Nobody else has got anything like it. Some people have copied it and pretended it's their information. There was a YouTuber that did that, another idiot. He copied information from my interview experience stories and published it as if it was his own. But no, that's the only resource I'm aware of where people have been adding that information for 10 years. And it's not my information. It's not, I'm proud that I created it because it helps all of you. But it's all of the people that, like you, Willart TV, that have been through these experiences and take a few minutes to write up their interview experience story as much as they can remember. That helps other people. So just as I'm a previous DV lottery recipient, from my wife's win, and I'm now a citizen, and I chose to give back for the last 10, 12 years, perhaps, each of you that go through an interview, no matter whether it's a positive or a negative outcome, I would like to see those interview experience stories be added so that we've constantly got up-to-date information from different embassies, and that serves as a very useful preparation tool for anyone about to go to an interview. Okay, so please do that, Willard. I'd appreciate that. Hi, Simon. What about the rest of Asia predictions? Can you tell performance about CLM embassy? CLM you'll need to look at in that spreadsheet that I was showing you earlier. Let me just see if I can find it quickly, but you'll probably need to search for it. CLM schedule in Asia, and they're right up to date. They're not backlogged at all, so that bodes well. If you can get current, etc., then you could be interviewed at Colombo. But yeah, you know, I don't know your case number, so you'll have to wait and see what happens. The rest of Asia is likely to get a boost if there is a travel ban, because the travel ban will almost certainly stop Iran, right? So Iran takes a reasonable number of the quota. So there's a quota of around about 8,000 this year for Asia. And Iran typically takes about 2,000 of those. So if 25% of the visas suddenly become available, right, that obviously is better for the rest of Asia. Now, in reality, Iran has already had a lot of those processed. And some people are waiting in 221G from Iran. So it won't make 2,000 visas available. It doesn't return those visas that are being issued right now to the pot. Doesn't do anything like that. But it will stop some people from going to their interview. The interviews will still be scheduled, funnily enough. People are still able to go through the process even while there is a travel ban in place. But it will have some effect on on scheduling, I believe. So it could help the rest of Asia, if Iran gets banned. Horrible for Iran. But since we're already talking about, we're in March, visa interviews being scheduled now are for May. If you're from Iran and you're going for an interview, May, June, July, you're already very much in risk, because you're likely to get put into a 221G status, and those statuses can take 4 or 5 months, so you can run out of time. Now, some cases are processed faster than that from Iran, luckily, I'm glad to say, but there is a risk, much bigger risk later in the year, after sort of June, July, it becomes a much bigger risk. So, what you expect for F2B this year, have no idea. I only talk about DV lottery. Carrying, hello Simon. For me, I'm just grateful for the time you take to share all this information. You're welcome with us, and I always watch your videos and will one day wish to meet you and thank you and say thank you in person. Speaking of meeting people, I did a little experiment with a recent newcomer, a DV lottery winner recently. It's always troubled me and bothered me that people have to write something in their DS-260 about where the green card is to be sent. In some cases, people have got a friend or a family member where they can put that American address in the DS-260. But some people don't have anyone that they can safely sort of put in there as a place to send the green card. And there's a place in the DS-260 that asks for an American address, and that's basically where the green card and social security number will be sent, right? You can also click a box and have an alternative, so you can have one address that you give, which is where you expect to be living, and then another address which is specifically where the green card and social security number should be sent. Either way, that's the problem I'm talking about. What I set up a few months ago was I set up an ability to receive mail for other people. I didn't want them coming to my house necessarily. So I set up a business address where I could receive mail a few minutes drive from my house, right? And I wasn't 100% sure that the government would deliver social security numbers and green cards to that address, but they do. And I've just proven that with one particular brave person who I'm grateful for. He took the risk of having the green card get lost, because if they didn't deliver it to that address, then we're in trouble. So we went through that test, and it worked. And this week on Friday, I picked up his green card and his social security number for him. So I now have an address which I know I can give to you people. It's anonymous from my point of view. It's not my home address, but it's near where I live. And it gives you a legitimate street address, which the government will deliver to. And you can monitor the delivery from for the green card and that sort of thing. It's quite useful. So so that has worked. So I'm going to shortly publish information on how you can use that service. I am going to charge for that service. The reason for that is because the cost of the mailbox is somewhat expensive, and I'll pay that all the time anyway. But also I need to operate that service. I need to pick up or have someone pick up the green card and the social security number from that mailbox, keep it organized, and then send it to any address that you want it sent to in the USA. By FedEx or recorded delivery, etc. Once you're able to receive that, right? So it gives you an address early in the DS260 that you can use later. I will charge for that. It's going to be about $70 or $80 or something. I consider that to be good value. It's certainly a lot better than trusting an Airbnb host, for example, or a hotel host, or just making up some random address or whatever, and then that green card getting lost. So I think that some of you will want to take advantage of that service. It's up to you. If you've got a family member or friend, then use that family member or friend. This should be based on trust and how effective it is. If you feel you can trust me with you're receiving your green card and your social security number, obviously I don't open the envelopes, I just send them straight on to you. Then if you feel I'm trustworthy, then I thought I would probably be a good choice for you. There are some other people who offer probably similar services, but do you trust them? There's not many people I would trust with my green card when I received it, frankly. But you may feel you can trust me. And so that's why I'm making the service available. I'll be launching that over the next 2 or 3 weeks. It might take me a little bit of time to put an intake form together. But anyway, and make that available online. So give me a little bit of chance on that. But yes, some details will be coming on that soon. Okay. And the reason I started all of that is because I'm going to meet that guy today, by the way. The guy who did the dry run, happens to be flying through San Francisco airport today on his way somewhere else. And so he's got a few hours and wants to pick up his green card and social security number. So I'm going to make that happen. So yeah, it's going to be cool. Phoenix, let's see. Okay, so if the travel ban is in place, do you realistically expect a lot of people to resign from DV interviews anyway, thus allocating the capacity to other regions, EU mainly, I guess? No, that's not what I expect. So when somebody gets their 2NL, that allocated interview will take place, and nobody will turn up if that person decides, well, I'm under a travel ban, I don't want to waste the money. Some people will go to that interview thinking they can get the issuance of the visa, and then hopefully the travel ban will be cancelled within the 6-month period that they have to travel, right? And so I expect some people to do that. Some people will just not go to the interview. So unfortunately, that feedback loop has to actually happen in real time, but there will be a reduction of the number of people that go for the interview. Those interview slots won't be rechurned necessarily, but the fact that less people are being issued from the interview slots will make sense to the government, and they will hopefully have time to make use of that. It depends when the travel ban is implemented and on what terms, right? So we'll have to wait and see. Another happy to report, I got my green card visa. My number was EU 7000. Had my interview at the end of February. Just want to say thanks for all the help and guidance. That's awesome. Hi, Simon. Currently watching from Houston. Nice. That's excellent. Sending greetings from Uganda. Nice. Ali, any updates on the new travel ban? No, I just talked about it. From Somalia, want to unlock my DS260. Will it cause a delay on my processing? And also, if relocate more than 4 times through KCC, will it cause a problem? If you keep relocating, sooner or later, they're going to get pissed off with you and fed up with you, and they'll stop believing you, quite honestly. So 4 times, yeah, I mean, that's a bit extreme, to be honest with you. So, be very careful with moving, right? If you're unlocking your DS-260 because you're changing the address, are you really moving from one country to another country and so on? Probably not, right? It's probably bullshit. So, and they will eventually think that's bullshit, particularly if you've done it 4 times, okay? But your first part of your question is, if you unlock your DS-260, does that cause a delay? No, it typically doesn't, okay? Depends what you do, but in your case, you're probably just changing the address. Hi, Britt, what are the necessary documents I need for a change of interview location? In some cases, Julian, they expect you to provide proof of you being at that new residence, right? If you said you've moved to some other country, you should be able to show that by saying, here's my address, here's my, scan your lease. I mean, there's various things that you can provide. There's no formal process that says you must provide this document to show that you're there. So you use a little bit of smarticle particles, some common sense, right? And you think, well, how can I prove that I live in this new place where I've said I live, right? And then you just go from there, okay? Vince says, for a transferred case to another embassy, how do you go about the notarization of documents from your country? If you need notarization of your documents from your country, it's not a question you need to ask me. You need to use your smarticle particles, right? And figure out, well, how do you get your documents notarized? But what you do is you have to look at 3 sets of instructions, right? There's the general set of instructions that everybody has that is linked from the first notification, right? It's you can Google the words "if you are selected," and it comes up with the website, which is the basic instructions for all DV lottery cases, right? In those instructions, it has links to embassy-specific instructions, which is, where do you arrange the doctor, how do you arrange the physician and that sort of thing, and any particular requirements that embassy has, right? That maybe you've got to send documents to them in advance, like they do in Sri Lanka, for example. So, that's in the embassy-specific instructions for the interview. Also, they have the reciprocity page link in those original instructions that shows you about documents being obtained from any country. Now, if in that reciprocity page it says documents from country ABC need to be notarized in order to be valid, then a foreign embassy is going to understand those instructions and say, well, a document from country ABC needs to be notarized, and it would need to be notarized in country, right? Ideally, you can also have it notarized locally in the new country that you're in, because there are notaries, that's who does notarization. There are notaries and various methods of notarization happening in any country, right? You just need to look into that. Now, that might be stated in the reciprocity page about the documents from the country that we're talking about, country ABC, which is where you've come from. The embassy-specific instructions may also say all documents must be notarized, or please provide your birth certificate or whatever, and it needs to be notarized. They could say that in that country, in which case you need to follow that instruction too. So all of the instructions that you need are all in there. You just have to go and freaking well read them, and people don't read them, which is why a lot of people get refused in this process, right? So, and people ask me for a list of instructions and a list of documents, etc. And my answer is always go read the freaking instructions, because by reading the instructions, you will know what you have to do properly, rather than getting a list from some random guy on the internet who doesn't understand your particular needs for documents, right? That's why I say go read the instructions. So go do that, Vince. Go read the instructions and then use your smarticle particles, okay? What do you expect for AF? I already talked about it. Please, I'm with my interview and I want to change my address. Can I do that at the port of entry? Yes, you can. The last place, so ideally, you should change the address that you're going to have, your green card and your social security number sent to. You should change that at the interview, ideally. But your last chance is as you're entering the port of entry. The one thing I would say is that sometimes border patrol officers and immigration officers are bored and tired and pissed off and whatever else, and you're the 78th person they've seen in the last 4 hours they've been working, and everybody's been a pain in the ass today, and so they're bored and unhappy, and they just want to go home and kiss their wife, right? And then you come along with your dopey documents, and you're asking to change your address, and it's just they can't be bothered, right? And so it doesn't get done, and then your green card goes to the wrong place, right? So I recommend people don't wait until the port of entry, if at all possible. I recommend people put that into their DS-260 at the interview at the latest. But if you have to, then you can make that change at the port of entry. But some officers will tell you, don't worry about that. You can do it online. That's bullshit. That's a lie. What they just said is a lie. Some people will say, oh, I'll do that, don't worry, and they scribbled it down on a piece of paper and it just gets mistaken, right? So you just have to be a little bit pushy in a polite way, and say, please, I'm very worried about my green card being delivered to the wrong address. I need to change this address. Can you help me? And make sure you change that on the documentation. Can you do that for me now? Just be polite, talk about them helping you, talk about them doing a nice thing for you. That's the way you ask someone when you're trying to get them to get over the fact that they're hungry and they want to go home and kiss the wife, right? Determination Tale says, at this pace of the movement, only the winners from Nepal and Iran will get the chance for Asia. What a stupid thing to say. Sorry, Determination Tales, but that's just nonsense. Okay. Fortune Theodore says, hello, sir. How are you doing today? Please, I am a DV winner, DV 25 AF 21,000, and I made an error without creating a DS-260 for my spouse. So they have reopened the DS-260 to add the spouse. Okay, do that, Fortune. And then you go on to say, but I can find add option on my DS-260. So what can I do now, sir? When you've been for an interview like this and they tell you to go and add it to your DS-260, all of your conversation should be with them from that point forward. You should be contacting them and asking them for instructions. Don't come and ask some random guy on the internet, right? Because I can't tell you some magic trick, but you can communicate back to the embassy. They've told you what to do. You now need to say, oh, I can't see the add applicant button, right? It's not unlocked or whatever. Okay, and it will remind them to unlock it. You can get through this yourself, but you need to sort this out yourself. You're already screwed up once. Your next screw up would be, by not paying attention to this. Okay, so pay attention, contact the embassy, and you will be able to sort it out. Okay. Hi Simon, Adam. We're the first to send to NL this month, but don't receive until today. And Addis performance is best, and they're doing their job according to the Greencard. And there is no backlog. Yeah, all true points. Don't disagree with any of that, but we have to see them scheduling some appointments for May before I feel comfortable. There is a chance that they can schedule appointments still before the end of the month, but it's the 23rd of March, and time is running out for them to use up that May capacity, right? So I don't know. They may have given themselves too much work. Remember, in the case of Accra in particular, Accra have been scheduling 20 or 30 people, on a monthly basis for a long time, right? And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, what did they do? Let's see. Let's have a look at what they did. Out of nowhere, they scheduled in January, they scheduled 300 people. And on February, they scheduled another 151 people. Not people, rather. These are cases. So they scheduled from a position where in the first 5 months of the year, they scheduled one case. They then scheduled 300 cases, which is probably about 400 people in Accra. 400 people in the month of January were scheduled. And in the month of February, they scheduled about 200 people from 151 cases. They've given themselves a lot of work. And maybe they've stretched their capacity a bit. I don't know. We'll have to see whether they can handle that. And hopefully they'll take some more for May. But they may have decided that, hang on a minute, we've done too much. We can't quite cope with all of that backlog. So we'll have to wait and see. Okay. In April this year, they will pick the candidates. No, the selectees for DS2 for DV 2026 have already been selected. They were selected in December. So they've already been chosen. They're being processed now, and the winners will be released in early May. Okay. IP, is it possible to be enrolled in some colleges in the US and after second year transfer studying to some universities? How often Americans or foreign students practice this way? All the time. You can move. All of the universities have a standardized way of tracking progress. They issue a number of points and course credits, etc., as you pass individual courses. So you're then given a transcript which lists all the courses you've passed, and you can take that to another college or university and enroll in that new university or college and continue from where you left off. So yeah, it happens all the time. Not a big deal. EU 26,000 a year. Will the possible travel ban help people like me with higher case numbers in non-ban induced regions? In other countries, yes, perhaps it could help you. It depends when they issue the travel ban. See, there's a feedback loop. I was sort of talking about this earlier. There's a feedback loop. The last interviews that will be arranged this year in en masse, a big batch, will be in July of this year for September. So in July of this year, they will know about interviews that are arranged in July and probably more likely June, right? So there's not very much time left for a travel ban to be implemented where it negatively impacts the numbers of issuances, in order for that issuance feedback loop to feed back into the July issuances, right? July 2NLs, I should say. What I mean by that is, let's say they banned everyone, in certain countries now, right? It's the end of March, but we're already scheduling for May. They would schedule June normally, but a bunch of people wouldn't turn up for their interviews in June, okay? And then that would say, when they look at the numbers for July, they've only got June numbers finished off to say, oh, hang on, the travel ban seems to be impacting the number of issuances, so we can schedule some more cases in July, right? But that's 1 month left. So if they leave this and we don't have a travel ban for, let's say, another month, but then implement a ban, it would be almost too late for that feedback loop to have any benefit for non-banned countries, right? So we almost need them to issue the travel ban quickly or not at all, right? I obviously hope not at all. But if they are going to issue the travel ban, please, they should do it sooner rather than later, in order for that to help DV25 candidates. It's a bit of a nuanced point, but hopefully you've understood. Okay. Hi, Britt. I'm from Lubanga, Angola, AO, and we are first on the travel ban yellow list. How will that affect DV25 and 26? Probably it won't affect you at all. Your country will be given a chance to correct some things, and if they don't correct those things within a 60-day period, I think it is, then they might be added to a ban. But the yellow ban is not a ban. The yellow list is not a ban. It's a warning list. It's like, do this, correct this behavior, or improve your systems, or whatever it is. And if you do those things, you're being given a 2-month grace period. If you do those things, we won't put you on the ban list. If you don't do those things, we will put you on a ban list. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily affect DV25. It might affect 26. We'll have to wait and see. Okay, but again, we're talking about a ban that hasn't been put in place yet. So this is all speculation. If not any travel ban is to be imposed on Afghanistan, is there any chance of 10,600? Yes, of course. Is Africa going to be current this year? We have to wait and see. What are the chances for AF52K? Should be good. Mathematically, that case number should have a good chance, right? Any update for Yaoundé, Cameroon? Please go and have a look. don't need to ask me these questions really. Can someone be disqualified because of duplicate entries in a family? Duplicate entries in a family? I don't know what you mean by that, Sam. If you mean you and your spouse, let's say, entered, but your brother also entered, and that brother did something stupid like duplicate entries, does that affect your case? No. But if your brother did duplicate entries for you, then you have got duplicate entries, and so that could be a problem, right? So you'd have to make more clear what the concern is there, okay? Adventure awaits. Hi, our case was in 221G for 2 months. The main applicant's case went to AP while the derivatives went to ready. On Friday, all cases changed to AP at the Colombo embassy. Is there any issue? No, well, no. You're about to get your visas. You're fine. You're all being given your visas. That's what's happening. EOB, is there any news about DV26? Nope, won't be any news until May, right? DV26, by the way, is not going to be stopped. Not for any reason. It's too late to stop DV26, right? Doesn't matter what Trump says. It cannot be stopped. So, if you hear anyone saying, oh, DV26 has been affected, they're bullshitting. It's a lie, okay? All right, sir, AF26 has been scheduled for interview in May. Please, I need advice on how to go about the I-134. I don't know if the host has to fill it and file to an office in the US before sending to me. I mean, quite literally, if you'd have read the instructions or if you'd read my article, you'd know this already. There is no need for someone to file that in the USA. What someone does is, if they're willing to be your financial supporter, they fill out that form and they sign it, etc., and then they scan and email that form to you, and you present it at the interview along with some other evidence, their pay slips and financial evidence and that sort of thing. So you need pay slips, 1040, W2, and photo ID. All of that is emailed to you, and you show that at the interview. That's it. And by the way, not every interview will result in you being asked for an I-134. So this is something you have and you take to the interview in case you're asked. Okay? If you're asked, you've got it, and you've got it right there, and you can present it. If you're not asked, then you don't present anything, right? That's it. Okay, IP says, Simon, and another one question. I won a green card, but as you know, I have to stay 6 months every year. May I write in immigration office after coming to the US to reduce the amount of staying till 2 or 3 months? Okay, the green card is not a visitor's visa. First of all, it's a permission to live and work in the USA. It is not true that you have to stay here for 6 months before leaving. That's not true. You're misunderstanding that. And there is no real minimum period each year that you're supposed to spend in the USA. However, if the immigration officers believe that you're not living in America, that you are continuing to live outside America, and let's say you found a new job outside of America and you've kept up your home, sooner or later, they could say, well, you're not actually living in America, and therefore we're going to try and take your green card away. Sooner or later, that can happen. So, you didn't apply for a super duper visa for traveling in and out of the USA. You applied for the chance to live and work in the USA. So do that. If you're not going to do that, then frankly, it doesn't make sense to have a green card, because by having a green card, you have to report foreign income and everything else. So don't have a green card if you don't plan to live in America. Quite simple. Okay. What happens if I get selected? Then my country, I get included in the Trump travel ban. If you get selected, everybody in DV26 will have been selected already. Even if those countries get banned, those people are already selected and can process their cases, right? You can go all the way up to interview and get issued for your visa could be issued and still be banned, right? The ban is on entry, not on visa issuance. They are allowed to issue the visas. So all of the processing work can continue. And obviously, you would only continue that process if you were trying to hope that the ban will be lifted so that you could then enter. The visa is useless unless you can enter, and it expires within 6 months. So you've got a time period where you must enter after the visa is issued, 6 months after the medical, in fact, not 6 months after the visa is issued. But there's an expiry date on the visa. And so you would hope that the travel ban is removed before that time so that you could then enter. But if the travel ban is not removed, then you're probably going to miss out. You'll have wasted all of that money and time on the process. And that's tough luck. Hi, Simon. I'm from South Sudan. My country is on the orange list. I applied DV26. Can I be able to get the visa after being selected? Yeah, I just explained all that. Is there any news on the Trump travel ban? No. After travel ban, disappointed. Continued my bachelor, but next year I seek East African ID and contribute again. DVL. Okay. Bear in mind, Trump is still going to be the president for 4 years, right? So this chaos, we've just got to keep our eyes, keep our heads down for a while because the chaos will continue. And it is chaos. I mean, the stuff that's going on in America at the moment because of the Trump administration is unbelievably stupid. He's making executive orders and then rescinding them. He's making executive orders and they're being blocked by judges. He's complaining that the judges are being mean to him, even though that's the legal process in the country, that he apparently has never read the fucking Constitution, doesn't understand the balance of powers between the different branches of government. Some of the stupid stuff going on at the moment is incredible, but also the government are behaving in lawless ways in some respects. So they are trying to take green cards away from people and even questioning citizens, etc. And in some cases have deported people without due process for no apparent reason, using the Alien Act of 1798 to do so. And then Trump comes out on TV the other days and said, "Well, I didn't sign the Alien Act, that they used. I didn't sign that. I didn't sign the order that says we were going to use that act." Completely undermining himself. The guy's an idiot. I mean, honestly, it's surprising how stupid one person can be and still make it to being president of the USA. That's exactly what happened. The man's a moron. Satham. My case number is 20,000. I moved to Saudi Arabia next month for work purpose. Can I change derivatives embassy location without physical address? The best thing you can do is to have your interview in one place altogether, right? If that means your relatives travel to you, your derivatives, if they travel to you, or you keep the interview in the old embassy and you all go together, do that, because it is possible to have two separate interviews, one for you and one for derivatives, but that's more complexity and it's likely to go wrong. And so I don't recommend doing that unless you absolutely have to. Okay, so generally speaking, you can bring the derivatives to you, or you go to the derivatives and you all interview together. Okay. And by the way, that thing of having two separate interviews, that's more risky later on in the year, right? Because time is not your friend. Like on September 30th, if they don't have their visas issued at that point, they're out of luck. So time is not on your side. Okay. Can higher case number get 2NL before lower case number within case range being ready for scheduling? Yes, I answer this all the time, and I always say yes, that can happen. It can happen because cases are processed at different rates, right? Two people can submit their cases on, let's say, May 10th of last year, and one's a very high case number and the other one's a very low case number. But for whatever reason, the low case number one takes longer to be processed. So the high case number could be scheduled before the lower case number because the lower case number DS260 processing time is much longer for some reason than the higher case number. So yes, It can happen that high case numbers go before low case numbers. It can happen that way. People are always outraged at that, by the way. And it makes me chuckle because it's like, so what do you expect? Like the whole of a continent, the whole of a region rather, like Africa, should all wait because your DS260 took longer to process, or because you submitted your DS260 late? You think your case number being low should mean that everybody should wait behind you? Well, come on, use your brain power. If your DS260 is delayed because you submitted it late or because it's late to process, everything else for everybody else is going to continue. And that should just be bloody obvious, right? Unless you think literally the whole world revolves around you. Like, do I think that EU 33K will be interviewed? It's a risky number. It always has been a risky number. And maybe the travel ban will help it, but I don't know. I have to wait and see. Thanks for a great job. Greetings from Kampala. Nice. I've spoken to this, I think. Yeah, you've repeated your question a bunch of times. Nairobi embassy said they are waiting for KCC to give 2NL, means they have a problem with KCC. That's bullshit. The Nairobi embassy set the capacity. Embassies don't know the case is being set for schedule for interview. They don't know anything about that. All they do is they make their capacity available. Then KCC take that capacity. Oh, you can take 100 cases? Fine, we'll schedule 100 cases from the queue, right? They have a queue of people that are all ordered, waiting for interview, and they take the next 100 cases from that queue and schedule those cases. It is bullshit for Nairobi to suggest that KCC are the problem, and it's naive to believe that would be the answer. Okay, so it's up to Nairobi to make the capacity available. What happens if I get selected in my country? Oh, I've already talked to that one. Okay, Bula Brit watching from Fiji, lovely. Cataline, is it? I have a B1, B2 visa from 23. I'm from Romania but live in Germany. I have been to the USA in 24. I have registered for DV26. Now I'm worried for enter USA again with the latest arrest. Okay, so there's a big question about nothing. What could I say? Don't be worried. I mean, I can't say don't be worried because, yes, some people have had, some problems. But there's nothing particularly about your message that indicates why you would have a problem in particular. Unless you've been spouting anti-American propaganda, and you're foolish enough to leave that all on your phone and everything. Just be aware that they can search phones and also other documents, etc., that you might have in your possession. They can search social media and that sort of thing. So they are able to find out if people have been spouting anti-American propaganda, right? And unfortunately, this shouldn't be this way, but they will also include anti-Israeli propaganda as being implied anti-American propaganda. America has a pro-Israel position, even though Israel is performing a horrible genocide. Trump is in bed with Israel for whatever reason, and apparently doesn't give a damn. Apparently, we as Americans don't give a damn, although it's not true, about people being just killed in Gaza for no apparent reason, and babies being slaughtered, etc. Apparently, we don't care about any of that. So, if you say such things, and you're not a citizen of the USA, you are somewhat at risk of being held to be critical of the USA. You have to be a bit careful what you say these days. Now, I'm an American citizen, so I don't give a flying fuck what Trump thinks or any of his mates. And if they want to throw me out, throw me out. I don't care. I'll stop paying them taxes. I pay them 6-figure taxes every year. So, if they want to throw me out, I don't give a shit. So, I'm free to be critical of the Trump administration as I like, right? And I'm not behind any country being allowed to just slaughter people in a country or a part of their own country, let alone a country next door, for example, like in Ukraine. Not in favor of any of that. But for some reason, we align ourselves with American policy with scumbags like Netanyahu and scumbags like Putin. Don't know why we do it. That's my opinion, and I'm entitled to my opinion and to voice it. Okay, so there you go. We got any more? 170, yeah, 170 watching, only 15 likes. Let's hit the like button. Absolutely, I think that's important, right? I don't know why. Mr. Simon Ambience, look at the BGH. I don't know what that means. I've already talked about that one. Okay, I'm just scanning down to see if there's any other good questions. If not, we'll call it a day. Can I get? There's a question about AOS. AOS is adjustment of status. Your AF 58,000. Can I get a chance at AOS? In which month can I attempt? Can you advise, please? Yeah. So adjustment of status has sort of a different process involved, right? You have to wait for your number to be current, and then you can submit the I-485. Your number could become current for interview in September. But if it is made current for September, you find that out in July. And when you find that out in July in the visa bulletin, if the final visa bulletin of July that's published in July makes your number current, that's when you can file your I-485 package. The day after that visa bulletin is posted, right? And you must use that. That's called the early filing policy. You must use that because you need that extra time. It gives you about an extra 6 or 7 weeks or so. Now, it's possible that your case number could go current for an August interview, which you'd find out in June. So if I were you, I would be ready with the I-485 package, early, including paying the processing fee of $330 to KCC and getting the receipt. That's part of your package that you need to submit. Okay. What are your thoughts on Oceania? I think people were surprised by the 50 increase this month. I wasn't surprised. They'd gone pretty high. There's 4 months left. I think they'll probably increase by about 100 a month, roughly. I think they'll get to about 2,000, 2,100, maybe 2,200. But there's no real mathematical justification for them to go beyond that number. I've always said that. I predicted that back in, I don't know, December, November. I did a prediction video for Oceania early because it's very predictable. So you can have a look at that. I haven't changed my opinions on that. I won the DV lottery, but I have minor marijuana possession from 2010. Would I get the green card? Yeah. Unless you were dealing marijuana, unless it was sort of a more complex case. If it's simple possession for personal use, etc., and that happened to be illegal in your country at that time, then that's a relatively trivial thing. It's not what is termed a crime of moral turpitude, right? So, so generally speaking, and I'm not a lawyer, so take this for what it's worth. It's just my opinion. But simple possession of marijuana doesn't in itself create an ineligibility based on a crime of moral turpitude, right? If you do something else while you're doing that, if, for example, you beat up a policeman or you're selling marijuana or you do something like that, you can elevate that crime to a more serious crime, and that crime could be considered a crime of moral turpitude, CIMT. That's what it's called. And it's only crimes of moral turpitude that cause ineligibility for immigration visas. So, and there are certain crimes, that can be lower level crimes, but considered to be more important from an immigration point of view. So look up crimes of moral turpitude and see the definitions for those. Okay. Let's see. Okay, last question. More on digital manipulation of photos for DV, please. I did elongate my photo to fit. Oh my God. Edit photo to remove flyaway hair from a face, but my photos passed the checks in the USCIS photo tool. Got green check. Okay. the thing that when you say elongated, if I elongated my photo, my face would become really slim, right? Might be a good thing, actually. If I could elongate my whole, I mean, I'm the right weight if I'm 9 foot tall. I'm a perfect weight for a 9 foot person. Unfortunately, I'm only 6 foot tall, and therefore I'm overweight. But if I got elongated, stretched this way, then I would look different, right? And so it could be that I turn up for my interview and they say, "Hang on a minute, your face looks very, very slim in this photo, and now you're a chubby bugger." So you know what happened. It looks like you've manipulated your photo. Okay, that would be a problem, and it could cause disqualification. To be able to say whether it's going to disqualify you or not, I'd have to see the photo and everything, and I'm not going to do that. I'm not providing a service to check people's photos. Thank you very much. There's too many people entering the lottery. So you've given yourself a headache that may or may not cause you a problem at interview. All I can say is it's rare to get disqualified for a photo at interview, but I have known it. I have known that to happen. Okay, but I wish you wouldn't do stupid things like that. Okay. Okay, we'll call that a day. Thanks for your attendance on my video today. Appreciate everyone who joined. Please do give a thumbs up on this video, please, and let me know if you like the video. Do subscribe to the channel. You are wise to get good information to prepare for your DV lottery interview. It honestly helps. It does help to be properly prepared. So anyway, give yourself the best chance you can. All right, everybody, have a good day. Bye-bye.